Consul General Geeta Bhushan for arranging a very comprehensive program. He arrived last night and we've already had a number of meetings. We're going on to meet the Governor, to meet Senator Rani Duckworth, to have interactions with the media. We also have some other meetings lined up with the community and others. So it's going to be a very, very comprehensive, but I'm sure satisfying day of an introduction to Chicago. I also have with me some of my colleagues from Washington, D.C., Minister of Commerce who heads our commercial wing, Master Puneet Kundal, who's here. I know that we will have some fairly key questions at the interactive session. And one of the reasons by introducing him is to ensure that if there are difficult questions, then he's there to field it. Of course, if there are softballs, then I'm happy to do that. We also have our Minister, Mr. Anurag Kumar, who is here with us. And our First Secretary, Press and Information, Mr. Shambhu Haki. When you talk about Chicago, of course, for us Indians, a lot of things come to mind. This is the place in 1893 when one of the greatest sons of India, Swami Vivekananda, came and introduced Indian spirituality, philosophy and thought to Western audiences for the first time. And we've never looked back since. And last year, on the 125th anniversary of this occasion, Vice President Mr. Venkaiah Naidu came and took the same stage and was able to again rekindle memories of that glorious occasion. But of course, Chicago is also headquarters to a number of Fortune 500 companies that we in India are familiar with. Everybody is familiar with McDonald's as a fast food place. Boeing is also a very important interlocutor partner. We also manufacture certain components of Boeing aircraft. Again, that's a company that's well known to us. Mondelez, which owns Cadbury's, is also very well known to every Indian. Kraft, which is Kraft cheese that many of us have been familiar with, is also from Chicago. And of course, we've had companies from the state of Illinois that have invested in India now, not recently, but for several decades. You have John Deere, which is the largest exporters of tractors outside of India. India as a base of manufacturing for John Deere tractors is which are being exported to our neighborhood, which is exported to countries in our region, and it's a very, very successful, let's say, example of US investments in India. You also have the new generation, new power company, which is a Chicago-based company that has invested $400 million in the new and renewable energy sector, which is solar energy in India. As part of our commitment to ensure that 40% of our energy requirements comes from new and renewable energy sources by the year 2030. We have huge investments planned in the solar and renewable energy sector. We intend to set up capacity for 175 gigawatts of solar energy. We've already started with 75 gigawatts. And the new power generation company from Illinois is a very important part of that effort, and they have invested into that effort, that vision and that thinking. Abbott is also a company that is famous for pharmaceuticals, and I'm told that its core businesses are growing at the rate of close to 30% in India, which is a good sign of the sort of returns that you can get. And I'm just mentioning a few which is by way of example. Caterpillar is another very good example of a company that's well known in India, that is manufacturing in India, doing some R&D in India, and also is contributing to our vision for rapid infrastructure development. One of the key areas of physical and social progress that we look at in the next 5 to 10 years is the development of infrastructure, which means highways, rail networks, bridges, ports, airports. There's a huge effort, and the approximate investment that we're looking at is close to $1.5 trillion within the next 10 years. Of course, that investment has to come both from public and private sources. And the mobilization of funds for that sort of an effort is going to be a significant effort. But again, we are looking at, we are already in that mode. We are looking at the expanding the highway sector by over 50,000 miles. At this point of time, we are already constructing 15 miles of highways in a single day. We are constructing rail, which is basically high-speed freight and high-speed trains also. The the Mumbai-Ahmedabad high-speed rail line is the same Shinkansen technology from Japan. We are also looking at upgrading 400 railway stations and making them the same as airports. We'll have, and each of the railway stations will have free Wi-Fi. Will be state of the art. So it's a transformation in the infrastructure sector which encompasses all of these areas. We inaugurated our 102nd airport, one of them in a height in the state of Sikkim of about 6,000 to 7,000 feet. I think the civil aviation sector is one that is poised to grow very quickly, and one that is also bringing us good dividend in the Indo-US business relationship, with orders for a very significant number of aircraft on Boeing, 300 if I'm not mistaken, new aircraft orders on Boeing company worth $39 billion. So that is the sort of, again, spin-offs in this rapid expansion of our infrastructure, which is only one area in which we are looking at. There are several areas in which we are moving forward, and in which our international partners, including US companies, are a very, very vital component of. Congressman Krishnamurthy has already given us, taken away actually a good part of my speech by, by the fact that his knowledge of India is so considerable. He has spoken about our vision for growth. Clearly, by the year 2030, we expect to be a $10 trillion economy. In order to attain that sort of an objective, you need to grow at about 9%. Currently, we are the fastest growing major emerging economy in the world, close to 8%, which accounts for 17% of total GDP growth in the world today. But that clearly is not enough. We have to grow faster, we have to grow better, and we have to ensure that our growth is not just fast, but also inclusive and sustainable. In other words, when we grow, we need to make sure that it's equitable growth, that we take with us the underprivileged sections of our society, that in doing so we create employment and that growth. And so it's an ambitious agenda ahead of us, and one that has been well described by our Prime Minister in his vision of the 10 different areas that we need to grow. And I mentioned one or two of them already, which is physical and social infrastructure, which is agriculture and rural development of the rural economy, which is emphasis on clean drinking water and the use of water resources, which is also the use of emphasis on renewable energy and the use of renewables. So there are a number of objectives here, but all of them are a part of the vision for our growth over the next 10 years or so. But let's come to a more contemporary. What is the status of the Indian economy? Many of you would be aware, and for many of you, perhaps it would be useful to just provide a very, very brief perspective. In the last 5 years, the change in the Indian economy, the different initiatives that have been introduced have transformed, in many senses, the economic landscape in India. I've already spoken to you about the growth in our GDP. But what is also important is what are the fundamentals. And the fundamentals today of the economy are very strong. You have a situation where inflation, which is seen by many as an unfair tax on the poor and the middle class, has been brought down from about over 10% 5 years ago to about 4.6% today. The fiscal deficit, which is also a very important indicator of good governance in the way you manage your budget, has been brought down from over 6% to about 3.4%. We have attracted $239 billion of foreign direct investments in the last 5 years. And one of the reasons we've done so is because the the climate for investments is far more conducive than it was 5 years ago. We have jumped 50 places in the last 2 years in the ease of doing business, which means that 90% of all investments into India in the last 5 years have been through what we call the automatic route, which is that you apply online and you get your approvals quickly. It doesn't involve a long-term engagement on the approval that you need as a foreign investor to go and invest in India and start your businesses in India. So with the fundamentals of the economy growing, obviously we are seeing much more opportunity. But the other factor that you need to know is the demographics in India. We are a young country. And the average age in India by the year 2020 will be 28.2 years, which is very favorable compared to many other countries. It is also a country that will have a very large reservoir of people coming to the workforce. By the year 2024, we will have the largest workforce in the world of, I believe, 985 million people from the ages of 15 to 65. This is both an opportunity and a challenge. It's an opportunity because you have a large reservoir of people, you have a productive workforce, large productive workforce compared to a smaller aging population that they have to support. But at the same time, with 1 billion people coming to the workforce every month, you really need to, the challenge is to be able to gainfully employ them, to train them, to provide them with the skills that will make it possible for them to gain meaningful employment. And so demographics is double-edged, but clearly it can be in our favor from the point of view of certainly being able to rely on a very large human resource potential. But as an investor, if you were to look at the Indian market of 1.3 billion, you would know that it is a market that is growing both in terms of the growth in the economy, which means purchasing power is increasing, but also that it's an increasingly young population, so the demand will grow, purchasing power will increase, and that's all good news as far as we are concerned. In the next month, we will be going in for our 17th general elections. Just to let you know about the, let's say, about the dimensions and the complexities of organizing an election in India, we have 897 million registered voters, which is double the population of the United States. Of these, about 150 million are first-time voters between the ages of 18 and 23 years, which is about the same population of voting population of Indonesia, which is the fourth largest country in the world. Now, clearly, these young people are going to make the difference in deciding who would lead the country, what are they most confident in terms of how they would like to see the country develop over the next 5 years, and the aspirations, who would best meet the aspirations that they have in terms of their own growth and development. So that's an important factor as we get along with the electoral process and we decide who would run the country in the next 5 years or so. Now, in India, of course, the fact of having a young population means that the digital part, what we call digital India, is also very important. We are clearly looking at the digitization or providing internet access to 100,000 villages across the country. The Prime Minister spoke of 1 billion internet connections, 1 billion cell phone users, and 1 billion Aadhaar card users. Aadhaar cards are like identity cards, barcoded identity cards. They identify individuals. And that's an important measure of the government's being able to provide services to people across the board. So digital India is important, and the fact that we are going to be increasingly connected through the internet, through mobile telephony, which incidentally is the cheapest in the world. The cost of a call in India is the cheapest anywhere in the world. You make your profits not in terms of the value addition, but in terms of sheer volume, the number of calls that are being made. And that, of course, is again a sense of how you do business in India. What again is interesting is the social media. Someone asked me just a short while ago when we were at a meeting as to how do we get the message, the political message in the run-up to elections across to the younger people? And the reason is very simple, it's social media. Social media has caught up in India in a very big way. India is the largest user of Facebook and WhatsApp, and we are the third largest users of Twitter and Instagram in the world. And of course the numbers are going up every day. 1 out of every 10 Uber taxi that's being used is in India. So if you look at the dimensions, they're there for all of us to see. And internet connectivity, the use of digital platforms is increasingly very common. Just to give another example of how we can use digital connectivity for the benefit of the underprivileged. We're not talking just about the top rung, but we're talking about people who are at the bottom of the pyramid, the final 100 to 200 million people who may not have, who might be landless laborers, who might be people who may not have the identification necessary even to open a bank account. If you look at just one scheme, which is banking the unbankable, under the Prime Minister's Pradhan Mantri Jan Dhan Yojana, which is essentially a scheme which draws in people into the banking sector. It was decided that we would use biometrics as a means of opening bank accounts. So you don't produce a number of documents as you used to. You simply go and have a biometric scan, you open an account, and that account is used to transfer money from the government to you. So there are lots of welfare schemes in India. There are as many as 412 different welfare schemes that cater to the underprivileged sections. One of the main schemes is the National Rural Landless Employment Guarantee Scheme that allows a citizen to claim 100 days in a year of employment. It's a right under the Constitution. So you claim that employment and you get paid for it by the government. This means that in the earlier days you paid him by cash. And when you paid him by cash, the problem was that some of the cash was diverted. By the time you get down to the chap who's getting the amount, some of the money is gone to various people. The second thing, of course, is that you had a lot of false accounts. People who, for whom money was claimed but who didn't exist. They existed only on paper. But with the opening of accounts for each and every individual and the payment of money for all 412 schemes directly to their accounts through the digital process, what we managed to do is to avoid all such instances because it's only through the biometrics method that you can be identified. And as a result, $84 billion were transferred to these people through these 412 different schemes in the last couple of years. 318 million new accounts were opened in India. 14 million false accounts were identified, which means these 14 million people didn't exist. But that money, public money, was going to people who did not exist. They only existed on paper. So this is just an example of the sort of digital process which has come through. We've also introduced what is called goods and services tax. This is a unified tax across the country. There were 14 different taxes. Many of them were charged by individual states, octroi, excise, etc. They've all been grouped under one platform, which means that we are now, after so many years, 70 years after independence, we are a unified market. And the upshot of that is that revenue collection has gone up by 67%. So that's very significant. And of course, when you talk about digital platforms, then you have many other instances where we are moving towards a cashless economy. Demonetization has encouraged, let's say, people to move towards cashless means of transactions. Cashless is beneficial for one important reason, is that every transaction is recorded. So you avoid an informal economy, you avoid the black market, and as a result of which people are taking to digital means of payment. A housewife can buy vegetables from a vendor, from a mobile vendor, using Paytm or using an electronic platform to pay for that. And that's becoming increasingly popular in India. So Digital India, which is just one of the many flagship schemes of the government of India, introduced over the last 5 years. You have Make in India, you have Smart Cities program, you have Swachh Bharat Abhiyan, which is Clean India. You have a plethora of schemes, all of which are designed to make India more effective a better India, which is designed to bring the benefits of development to the people of India, is one that has been working on the ground, and we believe that in order for this to be successful, you need more time, and you need to be able to bring it in a scale that is truly national in many senses. Let's come down briefly to the India-US relationship. We today enjoy, of course, a very close relationship with the United States. We are moving across the board on every sector of cooperation. So it's multifaceted, comprehensive, right from high-level engagements. I know the Prime Minister has come twice to the United States. He's addressed both the houses. He's addressed both the Senate and the Congress, and of course, and the House. And Representative Krishnamurthy is one of those who received him and escorted him inside. And we've had, of course, a number of other exchanges at the levels of the Secretaries of Defense and State and so on and so forth. So this has all been a very positive development. Perhaps it could have come much earlier, because at the end of the day, we are countries that share common ideologies. We have the same values and principles: democracy, rule of law, free media, independent judiciary. But I think, as I say, better late than never. Today, certainly, we are the major defense partner of the United States. We cooperate on a number of geostrategic areas of interest, including the Indo-Pacific. And of course, the United States is India's largest trading partner. And we have invested in each other as countries. The United States has invested close to $50 billion in India. India has invested about $20 billion in the United States. And I'm happy to say that some of those investments are also in the city of Chicago and Illinois. We have 40 Indian companies that are based here. As Congressman Krishnamurthy said, we have created close to 10,000 jobs in the greater Chicago area. Just to give you one example, a single company, Infosys, took the decision to create 10,000 jobs in the United States. These jobs are required for the high-tech industry. They found that there were not enough people who had that STEM background to be able to contribute in that way. So they've gone from university campuses, trained people for the requirements that they have, and they have already, I think, recruited in Chicago alone close to 3,000 to 4,000 people in high-tech and highly, I would say, paying jobs. And this is something that we will find replicated across the board, because Indian companies are investing not just in back office areas, but also in developing R&D laboratories, developing new appliances, and contributing where there is real value in supporting the US economy and in strengthening the economic ties between our two countries. I did mention that the trade between our two countries has seen a significant upswing. In the last few years, we have seen a year-to-year increase. From the year 2007 to the year 2017, in 10 years, the trade has more than doubled from 58 billion to 126 billion. Last year, bilateral trade recorded was around $40 billion. The adverse trade balance, which is in favor of India, has come down year on year over the last 3 years. And of course, that's because India is buying much more from the United States than it did before. There is a special emphasis on purchasing US goods. Last year, we purchased $4.5 billion of oil and gas from America. From this year onwards, our commitment is to purchase $5.5 billion. This works well for both of us, because it enables us to diversify our sources of energy away from the Gulf region, Gulf as in the Persian Gulf. At the same time, I think the prices are those that seem to suit us. And the US is also increasing capacity in terms of